Hello, my name is Father Tighe, and this is our 125th segment of our Journey of Faith in the Light of the Cross, in which we continue doing the background of Stephen's sermon in Acts 7. We go up here and we see our theme. Joseph became the patron saint of diaspora Jews, especially those who felt abandoned by fellow Jews. Stephen's freedmen, he's preaching to the freedmen's synagogue, could not accept or see Jesus as the fulfillment of Joseph and the promise God made to Abraham. We see Stephen in Acts 7, verse 10. God granted him, Joseph, favor and wisdom before Pharaoh of Egypt, who put him in charge of Egypt and his entire household. This was such an inspiration to the Greek-speaking freedmen's synagogue. Now we go on and we recall, Stephen was speaking to members of the freedmen's synagogue. Their forebears, their fathers and grandfathers, were jailed as hostages by Pompey in 65 BC, almost 100 years before, 80 years before, and were later freed. Now we emphasize God was with Joseph in Potiphar's house, in jail, as well as in Pharaoh's house. And this was an inspiration to these listeners of Stephen. We go on to our next screen. We recall Joseph won Pharaoh's house because he was familiar with the domesticated world of women, eunuchs, priests, and dreams. He was educated and non-threatening. He was educated by a pedagogue. He's the model for the pedagogue. He made these people feel comfortable. He was not comfortable, however, with the wild, unordered world of shepherds and hunters in the wilderness. The word wilderness is important. It begins with wild. So he never confronted his brothers. He just used his position to torment and torture. These are powerful words, but they're true. He tortured them till he finally revealed himself to them. And that's what we're going to see in this segment. We go to our next screen, and we see we're in Genesis 42, verse 9. Joseph recognized his brothers immediately, and he said, "You are spies." Woo. "No, we have come for food." Joseph said, "You have come to spy." He puts them back on their heels. "You shall not leave this place until your brother comes here." He put them in prison. And on the third day, Joseph said, "Let one of you stay here in prison until you bring your youngest brother to me, Benjamin." We go on to our next screen. Reuben said, "I warned you not to harm the boy." Remember, Reuben tried to stop them from killing Joseph and then selling him? Here comes a reckoning for Joseph's blood. They did not know that Joseph understood, for he spoke through an interpreter. This is very interesting. They dropped this note in there. Joseph's there, and he's speaking the language of the Egyptians, but he understands, and they didn't know it because he had been working through an interpreter. Joseph had Simeon bound. Now, Simeon is sort of a violent brother. He's the one that led Levi to kill the rapist of their sister Tamar. On their way to Canaan, one opened his sack and said, "My money is in my sack." They were surprised the money was still in there. Joseph had it put in there. They all lost heart. They thought they were in trouble. Back in Canaan, they told Jacob, "The man in charge, he spoke harshly to us, calling us spies." We go to our next screen and we see, "Then he said to us, 'One of you stay here, then come back with your youngest brother.' Jacob said, 'Must you make me childless? Joseph and Simeon are gone. Now you want to take Benjamin? Why do all these things happen to me?' So by torturing and tormenting the brothers, he's doing it to Jacob, his father. Reuben said, 'Put him in my care.'" Reuben's supposed to be a good guy, and he would have been the firstborn son if Joseph had not been born. Jacob said, "I will not," to Reuben. "If something happened to him, my head would go down to Sheol in grief." Reuben decreases. Judah now increases because Judah's line produces David and the Judeans. We go on to our next screen. Genesis 43:1. As the famine got worse, Jacob said, "Go buy grain in Egypt." This is the second time. Judah said, see, he comes forward. The man said, do not come back without your brother. If you let Benjamin go with us, Judah said, we will go. Israel, that's Jacob, said, why do you torment me? See, he's hurt the father, and this has been going on for months. Judah said, let the boy go with me. Our families are starving. We could have gone down there and been back already twice. We go on to our next screen. And we're at 43:11. Israel finally said, if it must be, take a lot of gifts and money in case the money in your bags was a mistake. May God dispose the man to be merciful. See, by bribery. Remember, Jacob bribed his brother Esau. So they took gifts and money and Benjamin, and they went down to Egypt. When Joseph saw Benjamin, he ordered a meal served. As the brothers were led to the house, they feared. They're living in dread. They're tormented and tortured. He would use the money as a pretext to make them slaves. We go on to the next screen. They told the steward, we found money in the bags and we bring it back with more money for food. We didn't steal it. He said, calm down, the steward. The God of your fathers put it there. What does that mean? That's interesting. Then he led Simeon out, so Simeon was released. Joseph came and they gave him gifts. He said, is your father well? Joseph is all concerned about his father, but he's been torturing and tormenting him for almost 18 months. They said, yes, very well. When Joseph saw Benjamin, he said, may God be gracious to you, my son. We go on to our next screen. He welled up on the verge of tears. So he left. Regaining control, he said, serve the food. Joseph was served separately, and the brothers separately, for to eat with Hebrews was an abomination. All right, this is very important. They took this, that Joseph was separated, and he found it was convenient, and he wanted his brothers to do the same. Joseph told the steward, fill their bags with food and money. In the youngest, put my silver goblet. So things seem to be going good. They seem to be going back to their father. And Joseph starts scheming and deceiving again to torture and torment them. After they left, Joseph said, go and stop them and say, why did you steal my silver goblet? We go on to the next screen. When the steward said this, they answered, if one of us has the goblet, he shall die. The goblet turned up in Benjamin's bag. Oh my God, the worst thing that could happen happened. They were all terrorized and tormented. Back at Joseph's house, Judah said, we are your slaves. And Joseph said, no, only the one with the goblet will be my slave. The rest of you, go. Judah said, we told you. His full brother is dead, and our father dotes on him. We go to our next screen. If he's not with us when we return, he will go down to Sheol in grief. Let me, Judah says, remain instead. Joseph started losing control. So he cried out, everyone leave. He said, I am Joseph. Is my father well? They could not speak. It was awkward. I am Joseph. And then he says, is my father well, who's been tormenting? He said, I am Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. God sent me before you to preserve your lives. So he says, this has been redeemed, and it's all right, but Joseph is not all right. He's in torment, and he's sharing it with everybody. We go to our next screen, and we see Joseph became the patron saint of diaspora Jews, especially those who felt abandoned by fellow Jews. These freedmen from the freedmen's synagogue could not accept or see Jesus as the fulfillment of Joseph and the promise God made to Abraham. Now we continue this in our next segment. We thank you so much for joining us for our 125th segment of our Journey of Faith in the Light of the Cross. And next segment, we will complete our Joseph story. Thank you so much.